Welcome to Dr. Stephen Gorad Vegan on Quinoa, Super Grain of the Future, Part 3 of 3.
When I started with quinoa, one of the things I talked about was diversity of genetic material in quinoa, because there are so many different quinoas. So there could be a farm on the west side of a particular mountain, let's say in Ecuador, and that guy grows quinoa there, and it grows well. Some of it may not grow well. The stuff that grows well, he keeps the seed for the next planting. That's what farmers do. It's like whatever works, they replant it the next year. So this farmer on the west side of the mountain, his quinoa is going to be different from the farmer on the east side of the mountain. The quinoa that's being spread around the world comes from different origins of quinoa. One of the original quinoas that has been most successful in other parts of the world is not the Bolivian Altiplano quinoa. It's a quinoa that grew in southern Chile at sea level. It looks very different. It's smaller, it's darker, and when you cook it, it's sticky. Chinese have something they call sweet rice or sticky rice. It's the same thing. They call it sweet rice because they use it usually in desserts. They add sweetener to it. So it's sticky, it like clumps together, whereas regular rice is sort of light and fluffy. Bolivian Altiplano quinoa is light and fluffy. This Chilean variety is sticky. If you cook it in a pot, and like the whole pot will be sort of like in one big clump, and it's different in taste.
As our world transitions to plant-based eating, those engaged in animal livestock raising will also change to compassionate livelihoods. Dr. Gorad believes quinoa cultivation presents a perfect opportunity for such individuals.
The spiritual meaning of respecting animals' lives is one thing. The other thing is the kind of ecological disaster that raising animals is causing on the planet. Here's an interesting scientific fact. Someone calculated the amount of energy it takes to produce a unit of protein, okay? In order to produce protein, you're going to have to do things, you're going to have to feed in, you're going to have to work, add resources, and then you get protein out the other end. So the ratio for meat is 50 to 1, okay? So 50 units of energy to 1 unit of protein for meat. For fish, it's 10 to 1, okay? Chicken is 4 to 1. Soy is 2 to 1. You only need 2 units of energy to produce a unit of protein. So much better than beef. Quinoa, less than 1.5 to 1.
Wow.
It's the most efficient plant for producing protein. Maybe it's not so important now, but it's going to be important in the future. Quinoa doesn't need, rich, fertile soils. It doesn't like a lot of rain. So the land that grows most of our crops isn't the best land for quinoa. But what is are the high altitude lands that grow grass. What is this? This is cattle grazing land. Land that currently is used for grazing cattle could be growing quinoa.
The Altiplano of Bolivia and Peru, about 4,000 meters in altitude, is where Dr. Gorad says some of the best quinoa in the world comes from. It is an extremely harsh environment with sandy, salty soil and receives little rain. Other places on Earth with very tough conditions for farming may also be able to grow this wonder crop.
There's a province in China called Qinghai. It's just north of Tibet, and it's part of the Tibetan Plateau, so it's also high land. It's a high elevation land. They're experimenting with growing quinoa in Qinghai province. One of the most important experiments for me is Tibet, because I brought quinoa to Tibet, and the plant loves Tibet, that's for sure. I went there. I wrote about it in the book. By the way, the book, it's not just a book of facts about quinoa. It's a memoir, so it's my story, but it's also like travel stories in Bolivia, just to show you what I had to go through along the way to do what I did with quinoa.
We appreciate Dr. Gorad giving his time for this interview and for his decades of effort and dedication to making quinoa more accessible to people around the world. May many more across our globe have the opportunity to enjoy this super grain, along with its many uplifting health benefits. For more information about Dr. Stephen Gorad and his book, The Quinoa Chronicles, please visit quinoachronicles.com or facebook.com/The Quinoa Chronicles. The book is available at amazon.com.